Hey, this is Warren Herman. Today what we're going to speak about is a comment that I heard once that conveys a certain truth in the Catholic faith that seems to make evangelism difficult. And my goal in this video is to provide a method of evangelism and a paradigm of evangelism and a kind of purpose for evangelism that is helpful, that allows you to, as a Catholic, be confident in what you are offering other people, and also obviously be within the limitations of what you can get people to do or not do, the type of commitments they can make and can't make within short interactions. There was a video I was watching of a priest, and I think what I'm going to say, obviously if you're not a Catholic, this is not a great statement that one would make in evangelism. And the reason why I'm making this video is to deal with this statement and to deal with the kind of technical realities that it represents, and to kind of unpack it, I think, in a way that makes things practical and beneficial for everyone. The priest was speaking about how, in a sense, if someone doesn't have the sacraments, if someone doesn't have the Catholic faith, if someone doesn't have a relationship with Jesus, if they don't have all those things, it's very difficult for them to be saved. It's not impossible for us to hope that they'll be saved, but the thing is, there's not what we call a reasonable hope that they will be saved. It doesn't mean it's impossible. It doesn't mean we shouldn't pray for them constantly. It just means that there's not a reasonable hope, because there's not the reasons, there's not the things that kind of naturally lead to that. So this is a big problem, because first of all, it sounds bad if you're trying to, lead someone into things. And so as a Catholic, we have to deal with this reality that, there's a disadvantage when you're not it's almost like saying there's a big danger when the fire is outside the fireplace. It's like, that's really what's being said here, is that without the kind of guardrails and without the nourishment, without the electricity, the house is probably doesn't have a great generator. It's like, of course, it's possible through great friction to generate electricity. You have those little lights, you can kind of squeeze the light, and it has a little motor in it, and you can it's like a lever, and you can kind of generate some friction and generate electricity, but that's really hard. But the problem is that it's basically like Catholicism is a power grid, and the hope that people have outside of a power grid is to generate that type of a lot of effort, that lot of electricity on their own. And it doesn't mean that there's no hope, though. So what I want to do here is understand that the goal, I believe, of Catholic evangelism is to always make people deeply committed to living the light that they have. There was a lady called Peace Pilgrim, and she was not a Catholic figure. She was kind of this kind of interesting spiritual figure who wandered around America, kind of preaching peace. And she said, "Live the light you have, and more will be given." And I think this is an important principle for us in evangelism, because that's what we really want. We want people to be on the leading edge of their own growth. This is a concept also that a certain spiritual teacher brought up. It's like we have to like someone who's all the way over here in growth or in this tradition, and someone who's all the way over there in another tradition, they can get along because if they both have a commitment to spiritual growth, they understand that they're both at the front end of their own development. And that's what we have to be. We have to always be encouraging people to embrace the front end of their own development and to live the light they have. And so that's really an important thing. And so, but what can we offer people? The real thing that we can offer people is the preaching of love for Jesus. Because if we have an unreasonable hope, if we don't have the kind of the reasons, okay, yeah, you went to confession, you did this, what we only can rely on is the fact that the person loves Jesus to an unreasonable degree. That's what we want people to have. We want people to be extraordinarily in love with Christ. And that's the only thing that we want to make him attractive, and we want to provide people with a way of having that deep relationship. I've already spoken about it in a previous video about evangelism, about the importance of the teachings of Frank Laubach in this regard, because he kind of has this homegrown variety of a tradition of constant prayer and constant relationship with Jesus. And I made this whole video called The Sinner's Prayer versus Inner Prayer, and you can look at that one as well. But basically I said what we really want to offer is a relationship and the communication skills in that relationship So some of the things I mentioned about holding the prayer in your mind if you have intrusive thoughts and temptations, like how do we have some communication skills and a relationship? That's what people are hungering for. They need a relationship with Jesus and a few communication skills with him. And if we can offer that, we are able to kind of get the ball rolling, because it's also helpful because you can't establish the Catholic faith in like 1 second, but you can introduce people to the person of Jesus. You can make people see their need for a balanced way of dealing with their mind. You can say, okay, like, do you have a problem? Do you have worries? Do you have illnesses? Do you have fears? Do you have anger? Do you have any of these things? Well, if you say the name of Jesus or repeat these short prayers or direct these type of prayers and have this inner life of prayer, you can kind of ground your mind in this balanced way that's going to allow you to have stability. And if we give you a few tweaks on this and tell the person a little bit about some of your challenges with this, you kind of give that testimony of your own walk and the ways that it worked for you and didn't work for you. And it kind of shows them how to live like this. And so they begin to pray, and then that can invite grace into their life. And if they can live this way of always trying to make every minute about Jesus, always trying to bless others, always trying to praise Jesus, always trying to do this, that's an unreasonable amount of love. And that's the only reasonable hope we have, so to speak, in a backwards way, for those who are outside the Catholic faith. So that's really the important thing. And again, this is not a video that's like trying to harp on this, but it's a video that's trying to deal with the reality of people outside the power grid. And it's really showing, okay, like, well, that's why we're preaching this insane amount of generating friction in yourself, because that's the only thing that we can count on because outside of an established power grid, which is the Catholic Church. So that is what we're really trying to do here. And so I think it gives us a paradigm for evangelism that doesn't compromise with the understanding that Catholicism is the power grid, but also understands the capacity of people, just where they're at, like where their heart is, and what's possible for them. And God also knows what's possible for them too. But it gives you that chance to say, okay, what am I trying to establish in people? I'm trying to help them love God constantly. I'm trying to give them what they really want. I mean, that's what they want. They want this ability to love God constantly in a way that helps heal the problems of their mind, helps them address the problems in their life, helps them always have this kind of new way of being. That's what they want. They want Jesus. That's what they're hungry for, this new way of walking with him. That's what they're hungry for. And so if you can offer that, you're also offering a pathway forward that it may not be in the sense of reasonably leading to a hope of salvation, but it's something that we should be encouraged to do. It's something we should always encourage those people to embrace, constant love for Jesus. And so the thing is that, what I want to say here though, is that, it's also helpful not to although that's technically true, it's also that we should not allow this thought to impede our confidence. Because the thing is, we don't want to have this thought become a suggestion that holds back our prayer. If we're not Catholic, don't let this thought discourage you. I'm outside the power grid. Oh no, I'm going to be damned. What if I never figure out whether Catholicism is true? I can't figure it all out today. All right, don't let that discourage you. It may be true, but it's like the fine print on an operation. You might die on the operating table, but trust the doctor. The important thing is to generate those attitudes that actually lead to salvation, which are the attitudes of trust and love and all these things, and always doing your best and trying to repent of anything you think is wrong, and try to always follow your conscience to the fullest degree possible, because that's the way that you can get closest to God. So it's not about taking these things that are technically true and making them into suggestions and mental obstacles that clog up our emotions and our practice of spirituality. It's about taking everything into account in a balanced way and understanding this whole thing as a whole, especially as we enter into the complexities of person-to-person evangelism. And so I think this is so important on so many levels, but the whole thing that we're preaching is to love God as much as possible and to encourage people to be on that forefront of their own development, to live every truth they can, to try to love their neighbor as much as they can, to try to bless their neighbor with prayer constantly, to live in constant prayer, praising Jesus, constant prayer, praying for their enemies, constant prayer, praying for their friends. That's what we're trying to do. And so that's what we can always encourage, and that's the beautiful thing we have to offer as Catholic evangelists.